everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my June wrap up. I read a total of 3 books, 1 Kindle book, 2 physical books, and I DNF'd a book, which is the book I'm going to start with because it was the first book I started reading in June, and it was The Memoirs by Susan Dennard. I think I only got just under 100 pages and I had to DNF it. I don't know whether it was my mood that I didn't want to read this, or I just couldn't get on with it. Whether it was the wrong time, I don't know. Whether I might try it again, because sometimes if I DNF a book, I tend to put it to one side and maybe try again in a few months' time, or maybe a year's time, or I have been known to do it again in a few years' time. But yeah, Luminaries, I just couldn't get on with it. It was about following Winnie Wednesday, who is trying to get back the good name of her family after her father kind of made their family outcasts. And I did start it, and I did start to enjoy it, but I don't know whether it was my mood, or I just couldn't get on with the writing, or I don't know. But we DNF'd that. It has been a popular book before on BookTube. I have heard really good things about it. But for me, at the moment, no, it was a DNF for me. I'm really sorry if you like this. But yeah, no, it wasn't. But a book that I did start in June and I absolutely loved. And I finished it, and it was definitely a 5-star race from me, is The Women by Kristin Hannah. This follows a story that follows Frances McGrath, or Frankie as her friends call her. She volunteers to work as an army nurse during the Vietnamese War, because her brother's gone out to fight in the Navy, so she signs herself up so she could be with her brother, hopefully be located to the same place as her brother. But unfortunately, just before she's due to go out there, her brother is killed, but she still goes out anyway. And it's a story about strong friendship, because Frankie, it's all new to her, it's fast paced, and these 2 girls, what are their names, take her under a wing, and help her become the best army nurse there is. But she spends 2 years out there, because when her first period is time to go home, she signs up for a 2nd year, which her parents are not happy about. But it's a story about strong friendship between the girls, and then also the after effects of what happened when she did return home from Vietnam. She gets post-traumatic stress disorder. Any loud noises, she's running for cover, she has bad recurring nightmares. That she kind of fell in love with 2 guys out there. One she didn't actually do anything with because he was married. He got killed, so she thought. And the second guy, she actually said he wasn't married, but they kind of had a relationship. She found out when she got home he was actually a prisoner of war. And when he comes home, the rat bag is actually married, and she finds out he's actually got a kid as well. So she has a heart broken. So she goes through all these emotions about learning, the stress of when she comes home. Her parents are disappointed in her, because they're not disappointed. They just, when she tries to talk about her time in Vietnam, they don't want to know. They end the conversation very abrupt, because they feel that only men should go into the war, but she wasn't. And then a lot of people say there were no women in Vietnam, and that used to really, make her cross, because there were women in Vietnam, because most of them were the nurses and what they saw. But again, Kristin Hannah has wrote a beautiful story. I've learned a lot about the Vietnamese War. I didn't even realise it went on for 19 years, which is a long time. So yeah, 5 out of 5 stars. Absolutely love The Women by Kristin Hannah. The next book that I read in June was another historical fiction, and that was Hamlet by Maggie O'Farrell. And this, I know I'm reading a historical fiction and not set during a war. Is actually set in the 16th century England, and it tells the story of William Shakespeare and his family. But what's brilliant about this book is that they don't use the name William or Shakespeare in it, or it refers to him as her husband, but it's more focuses on William Shakespeare's wife Agnes, or a lot of people know is called Anne. Again, I've learnt something new here. We all call her Anne Hathaway, but in fact on some of the records her father did name her on a birth certificate, I think it was Agnes. So yeah, and their children, it more centres around Hamlet, which was Shakespeare's son, who was also a twin to Judith and their older daughter Susanna. But it is focused on love, because obviously it's the story of how Shakespeare and Agnes meet, fall in love, and then her moving on to motherhood and then getting married, and then it's written about how strong her bond is with her children, especially when poor Hamlet takes ill and dies, and then it shows you the grief. You read about the grief that a mother can go through after losing a child. But it's a really lovely story. It's how I imagine, because I used to live quite near Stratford upon Avon years ago, so I have visited Shakespeare's birthplace, and as they described Henley Street, I can see it in my head because I've been there. But it's a great story. It describes just as that period of time is, and it's well worth a read. So it mentions obviously his plays and things, but this story again is more focused not on William Shakespeare himself, but his wife and his 3 children, and obviously his parents as well. So yeah, 5 out of 5 stars, absolutely loved it. And the last book that I read is on my Kindle. It's not actually a famous book, but hey, maybe one day. But it's my uncle's book, and it was the Printed Circuit Memoirs, My Life in the Printed Circuit Board Industry, on my Kindle. I'm very proud to say my uncle wrote this book, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I gave it 5 stars because I felt the stress, because he became supervisors and managers and things, and he had to manage. If you've been a manager or a supervisor, you know how hard it can be to manage people sometimes, especially when they're very hard work. So I felt his stress through this book, and I laughed at the things that he'd found out about these people. But it goes from when he first started working in the circuit board industry right up until he retired. I think it was last year actually he retired. So yeah, it goes through his full working life there. It's not a very long book, and it doesn't drone on and on. It gets to each point, and I found it hilarious. And when I finished reading it, I had to message him and say it was absolutely brilliant. I got stressed. I felt your stress. I laughed at the silly things that happened, which, you know, as I said, once you've been a manager, I've been a manager, I know how stressful it can be, but I thought it was absolutely brilliant. But this is available on Kindle, so yeah, it's on Amazon. So if you fancy just a little quick read, I highly recommend this because I thought it was brilliant, and my uncle definitely does have talent here as an author. So yeah, so they are my 3 books and my 1 DNF that I read in June. So yeah, quite proud of that after a few months of but my book of the month, I really don't know, because I liked all 3. Memoirs of Circuit Board Industry, Hamlet and The Women. So I'm going to have to say it's going to be a draw in June. I can't pick. I loved all 3 books, and I sped through them quite quickly, even though I didn't want some of them to end. But yeah, those are my books that I read in June. Let me know in the comments below what you read in June. Did you have to DNF any books this month like I did? It's very rare I do. Normally stick it to the end, but I just couldn't with this one, and felt my TBR needed a bit of attention rather than sort of wasting time trying to get through a book. Did you read any historical fiction, fantasy? What was the main genre that you read this month? Let me know. And I will see you again for another video very soon, because I'm just about to film my summer TBR. So I'll see you again soon. Bye.